What's up, fam? It's your girl Sherry. This is Obsidian Texts and Tangents, and I haven't seen y'all, or I haven't talked to y'all since my August TBR video. I have been reading, but I've also been living a lot of life. And so it is October now, so I am going to catch you up on what I've been reading, what I think about them, and what is coming up on my reading list. So, August, I will remind you all what was going on. We had a lot of things going on. So, the first read for the Octavia E. Butler slow read was still happening. That story is Kindred, which you can kind of see back here on my shelf here. I already own the Kindred novel, and for the occasion, I purchased the Kindred graphic novel adaptation. In true Obsidian Text and Tangents form, I hear my teapot whistling at me, so I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. The tea is way too hot to drink, so it's sitting over here steeping. But just for y'all's fun knowledge, we are doing a twofer. So I have both of these are from Trader Joe's because I be at Trader Joe's when I can get a ride. So I have ginger, turmeric, and a peppermint tea steeping together. Anyways, back on this, what have I been reading tip? So we had Octavia E. Butler going. I was also meant to be starting the Water Dancer as a buddy read with Noria at the time. Noria over at the Chronicles of Noria. August was also Ark August, so I was trying to read through the Arks that I've gotten access to thus far. And I had several books checked out of the library, so I needed to get through those. And Will over at the Book Barrel started a readathon called the Readathon for the month as well. So I was gonna see if, after I finished my readings, if any of those counted for that readathon. What did I actually, and I have a video saying what was on that TBR. But what did I actually read? Let's get into it. So this is my planner, by the way. What did I get through for August? I got through Rosewater, which was a library checkout. I got through Raybearer, which was an ARC, audio ARC that I had access to. I got through The 100,000 Kingdoms, which was a library checkout, but also was a read for the solar powered book club that's over on Facebook and is like co-led by, well, some of the leaders for it are Injiri over at Onyx Pages and Chloe over at This One Verse. And I'm a member of the book club because we read great things, okay? And then I also read The New Moon's Arms. I listened to the audiobook of The New Moon's Arms because it was readEHthon, which was the Canadian readathon, and Nalo Hopkinson is Canadian. So that is 4 reads. I had 7, 8. No, that's 4 reads. I had 8 on my TBR, and we all knew that was going to be like not a real thing anyways, so it's fine. I feel like I talked about them, but I think during this time Quarantine Pages was still active, so I talked about all the books I read during Quarantine Pages, so I feel like I've talked about them, but I'm realizing I did not talk about them on this channel. So let's talk about the first thing, which was The New Moon's Arms for the readEHthon. Nalo Hopkinson is a Jamaican-born Canadian speculative fiction author, and this book was set in a fictional Caribbean island, and the protagonist's name is Calamity. Her birth name was Chastity, but she was like, that ain't me. So she changed her name to Calamity, which honestly, good girl, because fits you way, way better. The shit that she was on. I digress. Anyway, so she is a 50-something-year-old grandmother who don't want to be called grandma, barely lets her daughter call her mom, and she's not happy growing old, and she also starting to go through menopause, and that's caused her to reawaken a gift she had as a child that she'd kind of forgotten about, and it comes back and it's even stronger. And while that's happening, she also finds this boy. Spoiler alert, because it's all over anything you hear about the synopsis of the book anyways, but it is a kind of merfolk type, like there are merfolk in the story. And we find out this boy is one of them. And I liked the book, but I did not like it as much as I had hoped to like it. I had a real problem with Calamity. Nalo did a great job writing her. She came off as a very real character and with very like realistic, conflicting personality traits and motives and things like that. So it was very well written, and I also really enjoyed the origin story part of the merfolk in this area of the Caribbean. I enjoy the way those stories were kind of, I won't say it was weaved, it was just interspersed into the like present day story that was being told. So I enjoyed those aspects of it. But let's talk about Calamity just real short. I don't want to make this video too long. And that is, she is so homophobic, and she is so nasty. And it's from a very like jealous, insecure space. And honestly, I ain't got time for it. I ain't got time for it. The universe is still working on me. I understand the like allowing grace for people to kind of come into certain things on their own time, because that's what needs to happen. We don't all like grow at the same rate, right? But part of my growth and knowing where I am is knowing what I do and don't hold space for. And if I knew Calamity in real life, like, even if she was my mother, like if I was the daughter in this story, because she does have a daughter in this story, I would not be holding space for her. I wouldn't. Anyway, so that's my issue with Calamity as a character, but I have nothing, like, the book itself was really good. It's just always, it's sometimes a bit challenging to read a story in which you don't care for the protagonist, which is actually a theme for most of the stories that I'm consuming right now. And so I'm including television shows and movies, as well as the books I'm reading. This is very like, it's just what's happening right now. So I don't know what the universe is trying to align in my ability to hold space, but it's doing something. So yes, those are my thoughts on the New Moon's Arms. I give it a like 3.5 for me. I'm gonna have to pick either 3 or 4 for Goodreads though, so we'll see what I do. Okay, enough about that book. Next up, I had gotten to the Arks. One of the Arks is a graphic novel by Nnedi Okorafor, and I really wanted to read it. And I'm still going to try to get through it, but it's very difficult to read the arc of it because it's digital, obviously, and the text for it's so difficult to read. The text is not clear, like it's very pixelated. The text is pixelated in the digital art, so it's actually quite difficult for me to read. And I'm someone like I already wear glasses, and I'm also prone to getting headaches, and it's been very difficult to get through, even though I'm very interested in the story. So I'm really sad about that, but I didn't finish it yet because I'm having to read it very slowly, so as to not get a migraine. Anyways, what I did read was Raybear by Jordan Ifueko. This is her debut novel, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So it is a story about a young girl whose mother has sent her to the ruling family's little situation to become one of the council members for the prince. The mother has done this because the mother wants her to kill the prince. But there's a lot of magic in this story, and to even have the power to do so, she must become a council member first. Now, ta-nehisi doesn't know or understand all of this because her mother has kept her in the dark about everything her entire life. She's lived a very sheltered life, and I mean that very literally. And going to this story, reading this story was such a journey. I enjoyed it so much. The characters are very interesting, and there's like ace rep in here, which I'm all about. There's other types of everything in here, so it's very interesting. Even the relationship in which the council members have with the crown prince, in and of itself, is a very unique and interesting dynamic to portray, because it's quite poly in nature. But yeah, it was a really great story though, with very interesting things going on. So plot wise, very interesting. That being said, ta-nehisi does frustrate me a bit. Not nearly at all on the same level as Calamity or most of the other like people I'm watching right now. But she young and irritating. So I don't know what to say. She young and irritating, and like I was like, yo, no, it's not gonna have the effect you think it's gonna have. It's not. Honestly, I loved it. So that's 2 of the books. I got through 2 more books. The other book I got through was Rosewater, which, remember how I was telling you about the protagonist that I don't really like? So Rosewater was an extremely interesting read that took me quite a minute to get through. So Rosewater is by Tade Thompson. Apologies if I'm mispronouncing his name. But Rosewater is so interesting. So it is set in this town that started as a like shanty shack tent town and built up into a much more like a city around a biodome that is extraterrestrial. And the biodome and its extraterrestrialness has impacted everything about this city, because it's the reason why the city even exists. And that aspect of the story is very interesting. Our protagonist, however, is super annoying. So Caro is a lying, stealing, secret agent for the government, cyber fraud preventer, I use the word cyber loosely because it's not really cyber what he does. It's not on the like internet. Anyways, so but he is extremely sexist, arrogant, narcissistic, and being in his head for the entirety of the book was exhausting and I hated it. But what I did love was the story of this, frankly, alien invasion, in which it is already well underway when the book starts. And when the book starts, we know that the aliens are here because we know that this town has been built up around it. We also know that there are people who are gifted in certain ways. Our main character, Cairo, is one of them. As the book goes along, we learn how all of these things are connected. Honestly, Cairo's very like slow about it, so it takes us so long to learn the stuff. I mean, like, we're learning it as we go. The story was well paced. Cairo was very irritating because honestly, he wasn't asking the right questions. I would ask the questions chapters before he would ask the question. And then I'm like, yeah, bro, you didn't think to ask that question? That's your next move. You not focused. He's not focused. Focus, bro. Focus. He literally found out that people like him who have the gift that he had were starting to disappear or die. And he didn't think to himself, whoa, best figure out what's going on. I could be next. Until it was literally like, he's next. Like, who's next? But I'm like, bro, focus. I mean, I know I just showed the lack of focus, but focus. My life not in danger. Well, I live in America. My life is always in danger. But point is, he needs to focus, okay? Anyways, the story was very interesting. It is part of a trilogy called the Wormwood Trilogy, I believe. And there's like very interesting things, like no one knows what's going over in what used to be America because they went dark like decades ago. And there's a lot of things that's happening. Things are changing from the way that they have been like interacting with the alien presence in Rosewater. There's a lot of politics going on. There's a lot of things going on that we are not privy to because Cairo is not privy. He's not asking the right questions, right? So I'm actually quite interested in the rest of the story, but I don't want to read any more from Cairo's point of view. So I have to figure out if the second and third books are from different perspectives. I really want a book from the perspective. I haven't picked out who. I would like to hear a book from a couple of perspectives that I think would be very interesting. One of which being one of the extraterrestrial entities who we get to know a little bit of because that dude seems cool. Or the Afro Puff lady, because she's also sounds really cool, even though she don't got Afro Puffs no more. Anyways, those are my thoughts on that book. I don't think I said the emergency vehicle outside my window. I don't think I said, but I give Ray Bearer a 4 out of 5, and Rosewater also gets a 4 out of 5. Next, I read 100,000 Kingdoms by N.K. Jemisin. I loved it. I'm actually currently reading the next book in that trilogy because it's come due from the library. I put it on hold like halfway through reading 100,000 Kingdoms. So I was like, oh yeah, I need the rest of this. 100,000 Kingdoms is a very interesting story about a young woman whose mother has recently died and her grandfather summons her to the like city where he lives and where he rules from, the city of Sky, and names her one of his successors. Heir. Names her one of his possible heirs, and with that comes, you know, death plots on her life. There's also a lot of magic going on. Gods live among them. Gods are held captive. That book, and what it says about kind of like willpower and agency and self, like literally the identity of self and how that manifests, and the ability to kind of have two selves occupy one body, I think was very interesting. It also had a lot of other interesting things going on. My space on my phone is about to run out, so I'm gonna wrap this up. I want to give 100,000 Kingdoms 4.5. But I can't do that on Goodreads, so I'm not sure if I'm gonna give it a 4 or a 5. But it was really good. I think it was very interesting. It was very interesting. It might get a 5. I'm very interested though to see where the rest of the story takes us. I think I'm gonna give it, I'll probably give it a 4, because just like there was the way in which the main character moved. I'm just like, girl, focus. Nobody's been focused lately. Anyways. So, what was I saying? Yes, I'm very interested into seeing where the rest of this story goes. And like I said, I've started reading the next book. So the next book definitely picks up after the bonanza events of how the last book ends. The last book ends like big shit goes down. Big shit, world altering events pop off. And I'm excited. There's also a very big question that I had at the end of that book. Not a question that like went unanswered, a question that posed to me. Like, is this character capable of redemption based, like, are they going to get there as a result of this path that's now been laid out for them? Because there's a possibility that that path that's been laid out for them would only reinforce the beliefs and behaviors and toxicity, murderousness that they've already been exuding. But of course, I think that because of the way that, because of the position of this character and the way that stories go, I imagine this character is going to have a pretty epic redemption arc. But I also, like, the way in which it's now, the redemption arc is being set off is very interesting, kind of why the character who set it off would think that that would be the way for this particular character. Humanity is an awful place, and that's not where I would be like, oh, you want to go learn a lesson about stuff, anything good? Let me go sit you down with the humans. No, that's not where I'm sending them. Okay. Anyways, that is a recap of what I read in August. I'm gonna have to make separate video for September because I think my phone is about to die.